Welcome to the remote meeting of the Statutory Licensing Subcommittee, taking place on Friday the 4th of December 2020, which is being recorded live to the Council's website and will be available to be viewed for a minimum of 6 months. I am Councillor Pauline Craythorne and I will be chairing today's meeting. I am joined by Councillor Peter Atkinson, Councillor David Brown, Councillor Marion Wilson and Councillor Jan Bakey. Before I commence with the formal business on the agenda, I would like to cover some housekeeping issues for us to follow. Could everyone please mute their microphones? To speak, use the chat function at the right-hand side and type in RTS, request to speak. Remember, everyone in the meeting can see the messages in the chat function. When invited to speak by me as chair, remember to unmute your microphone. Once invited to speak, please introduce yourself, your name and position, unless you have already introduced yourself earlier in the meeting. If you are having issues with connectivity, try switching off your video and use the telephone function only. If connectivity issues continue, you may have to leave the meeting and rejoin to get a better signal. If my connection is lost, Councillor Jan Blakey will take over until my connection is restored. Moving to the agenda. Item 1, apologies for absence. Are there any apologies for absence, please, Jill?
Chair, we've had an apology for absence from Councillor Derek Hicks.
Item 2, substitute members. Have we got any, Jill?
Yes, Chair, Councillor Jan Blakey for Councillor Derek Hicks.
Item 3, are there any declarations of interest? Item 4, the minutes of the meeting held on the 29th of October 2020. Does any member have any comments on the minutes? Can I have a mover for the minutes, please?
I'll move them, Chair.
Right, can I have a seconder for the minutes, please?
Councillor Marion Wilson, I'll second the minutes.
Thank you. Item 5 is an application to vary the premises licence in respect of Bar 1, 2830 Front Street, Consett. I would like to welcome the parties to the hearing, who are applicant Miss Samantha Jakeman and Jodie Armstrong, who was a witness, and DPS. Sergeant Caroline Dixon on behalf of Durham Constabulary. We are also joined by the licensing team leader Helen Johnson, Committee Services Officer Jill Errington and Kirsty Charlton, and the legal advisor to the subcommittee is Jill Proud. Please note that all 4 members will sit during the hearing, but only 3 will make decisions. I will now ask the legal officer to explain and run through the procedures. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, everyone. Just to advise that this is a statutory licensing hearing in accordance with the Licensing Act of 2003, and that means that although we've got 5 members sitting today, only 3 members can actually take part in the decision. The reason that we have extra members is, as you're aware, we've had IT issues to begin with, and sometimes there is a risk of conflict arising. If a member takes ill or loses connection, they may be forced to retire from the hearing. If that did happen, then it would mean we wouldn't have sufficient members in order to make a decision. So at the outset, we have 5, and hopefully that should avoid any issues. In relation to the actual procedure itself, firstly, we'll hear from Mrs. Johnson, the licensing team leader, and that's in relation to the application that's been submitted to vary the premises licence. Mrs. Johnson will outline the licensing report and questions will follow this. Then we'll hear from the Police Sergeant Dickinson in relation to the representations that have been put forward. Again, there will be any questions following this, and then we'll hear from the applicant Samantha Jakeman and the DPS Jodie Armstrong, and there will be questions following that. Once all representations have been made and questions have been asked, the parties will be given an opportunity to sum up. The order will be the licensing officer, the police officer, and then the applicant. After that, the subcommittee will retire to deliberate in private, and all parties will be notified by telephone, probably later today. And then following the telephone call, you will receive a formal written notice that will outline the decision and the reasons for this decision that's been taken today. And finally, just as the legal advisor to today's hearing, please note that I may actually interrupt proceedings if I consider that it's appropriate to do so to give legal advice. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Jill. Could we please have the licensing officer report from Helen Johnson, please?
Thank you, Chair. I don't know if it's my connection, but I've had to come out of another room just near my Wi-Fi point. So I don't know if anybody else was having issues with that. So I've gone from 2 screens to just 1 screen. So if you just bear with us, I'll get the report up. So yeah, as explained, this is an application to vary the premises licence for Bar 1 at 28 to 30 Front Street in Concert. A plan showing the location of the premises is attached as Appendix 2, which is at page 12. The application is attached as Appendix 3, pages 14 to 30. It was received and the consultation ended on the 10th of November, so it was party to a 28-day public consultation. The application is to propose the following amendments, which is for the supply of alcohol on and off the premises, Monday to Sunday, 12 p.m. until 2:30 a.m. Recorded music indoors, Monday to Sunday, 12 p.m. until 2:30 a.m. Opening hours, Monday to Sunday, 12 p.m. until 3 a.m. The current licence that it's licensed for at the moment is for the supply of alcohol on the premises only and recorded music until 2 a.m. So this is an addition of a half an hour. Also, the applicant's requesting to remove a condition relating to the use of polycarbonate glasses. So during the 28 days, we did receive no comments regarding the application from County Durham and Darnton Fire and Rescue, the Council's Environmental Health Department, the Planning Department, Durham Safeguarding Children's Partnership and Public Health. They're attached as Appendix 5, pages 43 to 47. But we did receive one relevant representation in opposition to the application, which was received from Durham Constabulary, and you'll see that at Appendix 4, page 39 and 40. You'll also see at page 41 a response from Samantha Jakeman in regards to that representation, which is part of the report. So recommendations is for the committee to determine the application with a view to promoting the licensing objectives and to give appropriate weight to the steps that are appropriate to promote the licensing objectives. The representation, including any supporting information which has been presented by all parties. Durham County Council's statement of licensing policy, which the relevant sections are attached as Appendix 6, pages 49 to 54. And then you'll see the section 182 guidance, the relevant sections again at Appendix 7, pages 56 to 61. The options available to members: you can grant the variation of the licence subject to conditions that are consistent with the operating schedule accompanying the application and the mandatory conditions set out in the Act. Grant the variation subject to modified conditions to that of the operating schedule where the committee considers it appropriate for the promotion of the licence and objectives. To exclude from the scope of the licence any of the licensable activity to which the application relates. To refuse to specify a person on the licence as a DPS, or to reject the application to vary the licence. Thank you, Chair, and I'll take any questions.
Thank you, Helen. Has Sergeant Dickinson any questions for the licensing officer?
No, there's nothing from myself, thank you.
Thank you. Ms Jakeman, have you any questions just on the report?
No, no questions.
Have any members any questions on the report? Thank you. The legal officer, have you any questions on the report?
No questions, thank you, Chair.
Can we move on then to the objectors' representation? Sergeant Dickinson, would you like to give us your representation, please?
Yes, thank you, Chair. It is documented in full on page 39 of the bundle, but I'll go through it for everyone's benefit. So, Durham Constabulary wish to object to the application made under the Licensing Act 2003 for Bar 1, and that's at 28 to number 30 Front Street, Concert. Durham Constabulary are objecting under the Prevention of Crime and Disorder, the Prevention of Public Nuisance and Public Safety. The applicant has applied to extend the hours for recorded music and the sale of alcohol for consumption both on and off the premises until 2:30 a.m. every day, with the hours open to the public till 3 a.m. every day. This licence was only granted on the 23rd of October 2019, and that followed an application which had been received on the 4th of September 2019, whereby on the operating schedule, the applicant stated the premises is to be run as a nightclub and will have a positive impact on the community, which includes employees, suppliers, customers, the environment and people of Durham. Due to COVID-19, the premises was forced to close on the 20th of March 2020, which is less than 5 months after opening. And following licensed premises reopening on the 4th of July 2020, the venue stated they were now a late bar and has operated as this with numerous restrictions imposed by the government. If this licence was to be extended until 3 a.m, would there be a nightclub or a late bar? The applicant has not explained their intention on the proposed variation. As per Durham County Council's Statement of Licensing Policy 2019 to 2024, the recommended hours for the operation of licensable activities for licensed premises situated within County Durham are weekdays, Sunday to Thursday, 7 a.m. till midnight, and weekends, Friday night into Saturday morning and Saturday night into Sunday morning is 7 a.m. until 1 a.m, plus an additional 1 hour for Good Friday and all other bank holidays. This premises already operates outside of this framework for the recommended times, with the sale of alcohol authorised until 2 a.m. So what reason do they have to want to operate further outside of these hours? When consideration was made for the appropriate times for the policy framework hours, Durham County Council Licensing Authority had regard to the concerns expressed by residents, the licensed trade and the responsible authorities, which included Durham Constabulary. And like I said, this policy was only actually renewed last year in 2019. In relation to the off sales, if granted, this would allow for alcohol to be sold to members of the public for them to consume elsewhere. The applicant has offered no conditions around how the off sales will be controlled and how they will promote the 4 licensing objectives. And there is nothing to stop people purchasing alcohol and then drinking in the street until whatever time they please, consuming it. Bar 1 do currently have a temporary off sale provision under the Business and Planning Act 2020, and this is in force until the 30th of September 2021, which provides an automatic extension to the terms of the premises licence, and that's to allow the sale of alcohol for consumption off the premises. However, there is a subject cut-off time of 11 p.m. or a closure time, whichever was the earliest. And that was agreed during the second reading of the Business and Planning Bill by Lord Randall of Uxbridge. If I can just explain that, if that's in order. So what happened was, initially when members of Parliament wanted to grant the licence to allow off sales because of the COVID-19 pandemic, they were initially going to allow it for the duration of licences. So if somebody had a licence till 5 a.m, 6 a.m, that would mean that they could then operate until that time doing off sales. However, Lord Randall stated, as we have heard, this clause deregulates off sales under the Licensing Act 2003. The change will automatically allow any premises with an on-sales alcohol licence, which is bars, pubs, clubs, restaurants, etc., to sell alcohol for consumption off the premises in open containers for the same hours as for on sales. I worry that this will encourage drinking in the street until the early hours. I fear that this would increase antisocial behaviour in town and city centres and in late night, evening and early mornings. The images from the weekend, when in some places social distancing was increasingly reduced as the alcohol intake increased, gave him real concern. Sadly, drunken and antisocial behaviour is not unusual in some city centres. So following his concerns, a number of MPs, when the bill was passed, restricted off sales until 11 p.m. and not the same hours as for on sales, which was set out in the initial drafting of the bill. Consett is a town centre which has a mixture of residents and commercial premises. In extending the hours that patrons can consume alcohol, the propensity for drunkenness and alcohol-fueled violence will increase accordingly. In allowing a premise to be open until 3 a.m, patrons will consume more alcohol, and the effects of excessive consumption will have an adverse effect on the quality of the lives of the local community and will have an impact on the crime and disorder and public nuisance objectives. The impact this will have on the local community cannot be ignored as late night revellers make their way home, compete for taxis and wait for food. Now, I am aware that Ms Jakeman sent in some comments around another bar that was open, namely Chaplin's, which has a licence till 4 a.m. for alcohol sales to close at 4:30 a.m. Members may recall that was one that Durham Constabulary also objected to, and it hasn't actually been trading at all since the lockdown back in March. It hasn't reopened, and also they were only ever granted on sales, and when it was granted there were a number of conditions. Like I said, on this application, no further conditions have been offered up. So in essence, people could be sold pints of beer and just be stood on the street in open containers. There was nothing at all to restrict it. And all other venues on Consett Front Street, the latest closing time is 2:30 with alcohol sales until 2 a.m. And that's Durham Constabulary's representation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sergeant Dickinson. Could I ask the licensing officer, have you any questions on the Sergeant's representation?
Yeah, if I can, Chair. Sergeant Dickinson, are you satisfied with the current hours at the moment? I know you've mentioned about the framework hours. All it is I'm just going back to last year when the premises applied for a new application back in September. There was an agreement between yourself and Rob Edge, who was acting on behalf of the applicant at the time, where you agreed those hours so it didn't need to go to a hearing. So are you satisfied with the current hours at the moment? It's just I know you referenced the framework hours, which are earlier.
Yes. To be honest, when the application was initially made, they asked for 3 a.m. on that application to mirror what the previous owners had when it was Lux Bar. Now, it was due to go to a hearing because we weren't satisfied. However, we managed to mediate for a 2 a.m. close, and so far there hasn't been any issues. However, with everything that's happened this year, I feel the venue haven't actually had an adequate chance to actually prove themselves because of all the lockdowns. So we can't actually see how it is going to operate.
You're just going to count it again, Helen, 20 seconds.
Okay, if I can ask Sergeant Dickinson a question, please. Sergeant Dickinson, just going back to the reference you make regarding the framework of hours, are you happy with the current hours that the premises is currently licensed for? Just going back to the new premises license application when this was originally granted back in September last year, there was an agreement between yourself and Rob Edge, who was the agent acting on behalf of the applicant at the time, where you'd put a representation in, but however you'd agreed that the premises hours would come back to 2 a.m. for licensable activities to close at 2:30 a.m. Just to alleviate it going to, and there was a few other conditions as well agreed, just to so it didn't have to go to a hearing. So just with your reference in the framework of hours, are you happy with the current hours that it's currently licensed for at the moment?
Yes, we are happy with the 2 o'clock at the moment. The applicant did apply for 3:30 initially, which obviously we weren't happy with in relation to the framework hours, but we did come to an agreement after much discussion to pull it back till 2 a.m. However, obviously they now want to do it longer again, so that's why we put the objection in. But yes, 2 o'clock is okay at the moment.
Thank you, Helen. Ms Chapman, would you like to ask a question on the police report?
Yeah, my question was just why that the removal of the polycarbonate glass policy wasn't mentioned within Caroline's report. I was just wondering why.
Yeah, in relation to that, it was the report like covering all like the aspects of the variation you wanted to do. The polycarbonate was again put on after there was 3 serious incidents within the venue. I appreciate that was the previous owners, but it was only going back till July 2019. So when this application was applied for, we made that a request due to glass being used as a weapon. So again, it was just part of this variation that we don't feel that you've operated long enough to actually prove that, you know, there's not going to be incidents within the pub.
Have you any other questions, Ms Chapman?
No, that's fine. Not at the moment.
Thank you very much. Have any members any question for the police report? Jill, Jill, have you any questions?
Thank you. If I could just clarify, Sergeant Dickinson, obviously I appreciate that the licence was granted in October 2019, and as a result of COVID, it's only been operating for, well, the premises has only been open properly for a few months. But have any issues been identified from the October through until the March?
No, it's been run well since it's reopened.
Oh, okay, so there's no issues as it is from the, I appreciate it's a short time, but no issues from the October through until the March?
No, everything's been okay.
Thank you. And if I can just, it's probably more a point of clarification really than a question as such, but in your representations, you sort of mentioned that it's not clear whether they're going to open as a late bar or whether they're going to open as a nightclub. It is right, isn't it, that in the Licensing Act of 2003, there is no actual distinction about nightclubs. It's just a premises licence that is issued. Some premises are open to sort of 11 o'clock, some premises are open till 1, some premises are open till 3. So it's not specifically designated as you don't have a licence for a nightclub, it's just a licence with varied hours.
Yeah, it was just on the operating schedule when they first applied, and it had described the nature of the business, they put nightclub.
Right.
And they were advertising as a nightclub, and under the COVID restrictions, nightclubs still aren't allowed to open. So if there was any venues that have a dance floor and played music, they weren't allowed to do this. So they had to remodel themselves as a late bar and put tables and chairs.
Yes, yeah, I appreciate that. Yes, yeah. I think that's accepted. So they can't open as a nightclub, but if they're operating as, well, obviously not at the moment, but when the premises were allowed to operate, if they were operating socially distanced, table service and not going to the bar, then sort of they could open as a pub, obviously to I think it was 10 o'clock at that time.
Yes, yeah.
Yes, thank you. I've no further questions, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jill. Can we turn now to the applicant? Would Ms Chapman and Ms Armstrong like to put their representation to the committee?
Yes. Do you want to speak? Yeah.
Well, first, in respect of the polycarbonate glass, that was already on Lux's licence before we even took over. It wasn't put on because of the trouble beforehand. That's one of the reasons why Lux lost their licence. So we feel like we're getting punished now because of what happened there. We have jumped through hoops to make sure that Bar 1 is ran 100% how we've been told to do it. We're very, very tough on people who don't stick to rules. So I feel like we're the only bar in concert who have to use glass. Like, I don't know if anyone is like a Guinness drinker or something. Can you imagine getting a pint of Guinness into a plastic beaker and served to you? It's really not very nice. And also if you drink out of a bottle, i.e. like an alcohol pops, and it's canted into like a little plastic beaker, you feel like a bit of a child sitting in a bar drinking out of a plastic beaker. We sell very little bottles and pints because of that reason. People don't want to drink them out of the plastic.
Yeah, you can't. I mean, if you were ever in the bar for a celebration, there's no, clinking the glasses for cheers or anything like that. It kind of takes away from the whole, experience when there is no glass at all within the bar. So it's a bit.
We have a lot of wastage in kegs as well. Obviously, we don't use them once they're open. They go off quite quick if they're not used. And then in relation to the extra half an hour for serving and extra half an hour to open, and we're only doing that because we get we're quite a later bar. Even though if we open early, a lot of people come out later, and we feel like we're having to kick people out and they're not ready to go home. I understand totally Caroline's point by residents and noise, but as I said before, there's a bar 100 yards across the road who have got a 4:30 license. So even if the leave hours are 3 a.m, they're going to go and they're not ready to go home, they're going to cross the road and go over to that bar. So the nuisance is going to come from them anyway. But we're quite tough on moving people along. Me and Sam have just had a discussion there. We are happy to take the consumption of alcohol off if we're able to be granted till the 3 a.m. So then that solves the issue of Caroline saying people could take drinks out of our bar and sit on the street till whatever time in the morning and cause nuisance. We're happy to take that off.
I mean, another thing would be like that extra half an hour of people being allowed into our bar. It would almost stagger that leaving time. So if people stay with us for an extra half an hour, a lot of them are likely to just go straight home after heading to us, because they've only got a short amount of time in the next bar. So there would, more people would head straight home after us, rather than almost everybody. What happens now is everybody heads over to the later bar, and then that leaves everybody leaving at the same time from that bar, which causes, we often see it happen because we're there doing our cleaning and everything, and we see everybody leave the later bar and the street is almost full of people. Whereas us having a little bit later, it just gives it that staggered time. People would probably finish up and head straight home from us rather than going over to the other bar. That's probably the only thing.
Also, like Caroline said, that Chaplains hasn't reopened since all the pandemic, which I totally understand, and I know they haven't. But I know it has been resold in the lockdown, so it is getting ready to reopen. So that you can't really use that as an issue either, because they are going to reopen, and they are going to be open to 4:30 a.m. Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, whatever. I think that's the hours they're on. So they're still going to be open, even if we shut at 2:30 or 3, whichever the case is going to be. There's still going to be people on the street till 4:35 in the morning. I think that's
that's all.
Is that it? Thank you very much for your representation. Can I ask the licensing officer, Helen, have you got any questions?
Nothing, Chair, no.
No? Can I ask Sergeant Dixon, have you got any questions at all?
Yes, please, just a couple. Can I just ask you, how many door staff do you currently have on now?
We have 2 on, but we have a third on standby if it gets really busy. And if we do as well, sorry, I just wanted to add, if we are quiet at the end of the night, we will shut early. We will not just specifically stay open till 3 a.m. if there's nobody in as well.
Right, and I know you mentioned chaplains. Are you aware what additional conditions they have to allow the late licence?
Yes, I read the 40-odd page thing that Mr. Frank Kearney put in. But that's still, I know they've got conditions, but there's still people on the street. And if you were policing on the street late that night, you would see that.
Right, and just in relation to, because what my concern is, obviously I know, Jodie, you were involved with it when it was Lux Bar. Is that correct?
Oh, sorry. I was going to take over as the DPS when they reapplied for the thing. I wasn't a part of it before that.
Right.
When all the trouble was there.
So in relation to the previous owner, Arif Toshi, is he anything at all to do with this business now?
No, he is. We sublease it from him because he lets it off the land who owns it, and then we sublet it. Me and Sam sublet it off him, and we run it like that. So that's all he's got to do. Sometimes he's in doing work and stuff, but he doesn't have anything to do with the business.
He does maintenance on the property and
Yes.
things, with it being his, his lease that we then sublease.
Yeah.
So he's there doing maintenance on the property sometimes.
Right. So does he ever go there, like frequent it, like on a night out? Is he ever there when you're open, like
He helps
trading?
out. He's got his doorman's badge, so if we're short with door staff, he works on the door sometimes. He does work for us, but he doesn't have nothing to do with the business, which is in his full right to do.
Right. So he's actually got a door supervisor's badge.
Yes.
He has, yes.
Right. That's all for myself. Thank you.
Thank you. Do any members have any questions at all? No? Can I just ask a question? You know, when you say that plastic glasses are on your license, when you first applied for it and that was put on, did you agree to that at the time?
The plastic glasses was already on to the premises before bar one, and it was carried over to the license when it was Lux, from Lux to bar one. We have tried before to get it taken off, and we were told no. But we're the only bar in concert who have to use plastic, and I understand trouble before. I totally understand, and there were really bad incidents. But that's not to say that that's not going to happen in any.
Say something.
Just quickly before it'll be in relation to this question, that's all.
Right. Right, can I ask a question, please, of Miss Jakeman, regarding when you first got your licence, it had about the plastic glasses in. Did you agree to that at the time?
It was carried over from the previous Lux bar, and it was carried over from their previous license, and then put onto our new application.
Rob Edge did agree to it so we could push forward and get the bar open, because we had a lot of problems obviously with Lux getting revoked. We had a lot of problems getting a new license. It took us like 4 months to get a new license for this bar. So we did. It was Rob who was working for us at the time. He agreed to it just so we could get the license. As I say, me and Sam have applied to try and take it out before, and we got rejected. But as I say, we're the only ones in concert with plastic, and we do lose a few customers through that.
Yeah, we lose
it's awful drinking out of a plastic beaker when you go out for a nice drink with your friends and so forth. So that's more of the reason. And we're quite tough on rules. Like, I'm not saying no accidents won't happen. You can't ever say that, but we are quite tough.
Yeah.
And door staff are very strict on punters in the bar.
Oh, thank you very much. Can I ask just another question, just to get it right in my mind? Was that correct in saying that you were prepared to stop doing the off sales if you could get your license?
Yeah, to remove the off sales, we'll be happy to get rid of that from it.
To compromise.
Yeah, compromise and take that off and just go forward with the rest of the application.
Thank you. Is that all right for that to happen, Helen, please? I'm just asking.
Yeah. Just to confirm, Chair, the application is to add off sales. If you as a committee wanted to look into that, and obviously the suggestion from the licence holder there, you could do that. That is an option to you. If I can just clarify as well, what Miss Armstrong was saying there, I just had the original application up when it applied for its new licence back in September last year, and it's just to confirm what Miss Armstrong was saying there, that Rob Edge, who was acting on behalf of the applicant at the time, did propose that polycarbonate glass condition.
Thank you very much, Helen. Does the legal officer have any questions at all?
Thank you. I was going to ask about the just confirming that they were happy to remove the off-sales chair, but you've already done that, so thank you. That was the only question I had. Thank you.
Thank you very much then. Can we go to the final address then? Helen, would you like to address the committee, please?
I've got nothing further, Chair. As outlined in my presentation, the options are outlined in the report, and obviously the advice I've given to members today as well.
Thank you, Helen. Sergeant Dixon, would you like to sum up in your representation?
Yeah, just for myself, I'm not sure which application Georgie's referring to, whether I've asked to remove the polycarbonate glass, because there was a minor variation in February 2020 where we did amend the licence for them to remove some more of the stringent conditions. But finally, just from Durham Constabulary, when this application was made, both the applicants were aware, had grave concerns about Arif Toshi being involved. And now in this hearing, they've actually said to me that he is there and he's actually working as door staff. There was an agreement that he would have nothing at all to do with the premises under the licence side. I'm aware he is the leaseholder, but to be honest, this makes me even more concerned than I was previously, that it is actually still him who is running the business and he's still got control over it. And if we were to remove the glasses, we could be faced with what we were faced when he had involvement, that 3 people received significant injuries caused by glass, and that there shouldn't be any further extension to any of the hours, because I now feel that we were given a promise that he wouldn't be involved, but now I find out that he's a member of door staff. And that's all from myself. Thank you.
Thank you, Sergeant Dickinson. Before I bring Jill in, Ms. Jakeman, I think, has asked to respond to that. Is in the summing up, is that all right to do that, Jill? It is.
Sorry, I'll just take my. Did you have a question, Ms. Jakeman, or did you just want to make your summary?
It was just to say, just to clarify in the point that Caroline Dickinson made there, Mr. Toshi does not run the business, nor does he have any anything to do with the business other than maintenance on the property. And he helps out with occasional door staff. He's not a regular member of staff, nor does he run my business. He has nothing to do with my business other than a landlord, maintenance, and he has occasionally helped out with door staff.
We've jumped through hoops to make this bar run perfectly. And like she said in her statement before, she's had no problems with us since last November. 1st of November, we opened last year. Not one incident has happened in our bar.
Thank you very much. Would you like to make the final comments then, please, Jill?
Thank you, Chair. I didn't have any further advice to give. I've advised in relation to the.
Sorry, Jill.
Which Jill?
Interrupt. I've gone and jumped the gun. I should have asked Miss Jakeman to sum up, and I haven't. I'm sorry about that. Helen, before you start, Miss Jakeman, Helen, would you like to come in on something?
Sorry if I just can ask a question, either for Miss Armstrong or Miss Jakeman. Have you been open since you've been allowed to be open from the 4th of July?
Yes, we have. We were operating with table service, and so basically like that, yeah. So with table service, no drinks at the bar, obviously no dancing, no music or anything like that.
We were only told twice when someone come in to check. They just did lower the music slightly, but other than that, everything we were on absolutely perfect.
Absolutely perfect. Yeah, we were told on several occasions that how we were running the bar during COVID restrictions was one of the best in the in the area.
Just to confirm, Chair, I was part of one of the visits to the bar, and it was COVID compliant at the time. I don't know if I can quickly ask Caroline, have you had any issues when it's been open since from the 4th of July?
Sergeant,
yeah, if you just bear with me, when obviously the initial question was asked about any sort of issues, there hasn't been any issues as in like major issues. Like all bars, there has been incidents, obviously, which have needed police attendance, but there've been what we'd call minor issues. There was 3rd of August, there was antisocial behaviour where somebody has spat in the door staff's face after they'd been turned away. There was 7th of August, where someone's thrown garlic sauce at one of the door staff. There was the 9th of August, where there was a report of a massive brawl outside the bar. The caller couldn't say how many people were involved, but more were joining in. There was the 31st of August, where the door staff had confiscated 7 bags of cocaine and some other bags of powder. There was a 12th of September, where callers been reported that they've been assaulted by females outside the premises. And then there was the 16th of September, where door staff have seized 6 half-empty bags of cocaine and a clump of cannabis from a male. Part of Durham Constabulary's working practices since the reopening of the pubs has been to do visits quite frequently to all of the bars. So it's been part of like routine visits. And without going through all of them now, can't actually say if there's been any major problems. I know they've said there's a couple of times the music was asked to be turned down, but I'd have to come back to you because I'd have to sit and go through all the visits because there's been about a dozen or so.
Right. Can we go now then?
Okay, thank you.
Back to Sarah Jackman, please. Samantha Jackman. Sorry. Would you like to come in and do your representation?
Oh, do you want to do?
Yeah, is that this? It's just a summary, yeah? Just to summarise.
Yeah.
So just to summarise that we feel as though to run our business effectively, you know, we do need that extra time because we are losing quite a lot of customers. We also lose a lot of customers due to the polycarbonate glass policy, and we're not running effectively as a bar serving plastic beakers. You know, maybe as a children's entertainment venue, but definitely not as a bar using the plastic. And that was mainly our summary, really, wasn't it? That was really all. What did you want to say?
Just that all the incidents that Caroline just said were all outside of the premises, not inside, and they're confiscating drugs off people. That's a good thing, that it's not getting done in premises. We are very, very effective on searches. We search almost 95% of people that come in our bar, which is why we take such a substantial amount of drugs off people, because we do that. So I think that's a good thing, not a bad thing. And as I say, all of them incidents were all outside of the premises, not inside.
Yeah, we rarely have incidents inside the premises. And as Caroline already mentioned, that one of the incidents was caused because we didn't let somebody in. Yeah. And that happened, you know,
my car got damaged actually that night, and it was me who rang the police. So if I didn't want the police to know that, why would I ring them? You see, it's like, I'm not trying to hide that there was trouble outside the bar. And as I say, my car got severely damaged that night.
You know, we're trying to stop people who cause these incidents into our bar. Unfortunately, that has sometimes caused an incident outside, but that's due to us trying to stop these incidents. Yeah. So, you know, we can't really say much more on that.
Thank you very much, Ms. Jackman. Finally then, sorry, Jill, would you like to come in as the legal officer and make your last comments?
Thank you, Chair. I don't think, as I was saying this, I don't think there's any further advice that I need to give you. I just advised about the point in relation to the there being no specific licence for a nightclub. I think you just need to decide, Chair, who is going to retire and deliberate with you, because it is only 3. And then once that deliberation's in private, you will call me in later once you've made the decision, just to confirm that it's legally correct, and then I will notify the licensing officer after the hearing, and then the parties will be notified later. Thank you, Chair.
Could I have another 2 members, please, to join me in the deliberation? Jan, you were doing my connection, so are you prepared to come in? And anyone else? Jan?
Yeah, I'm prepared to come in, Pauline.
Pardon?
I'm prepared to take part in the deliberations.
Right. Could I have 1 more member, please?
Chair, I'm happy to.
Councillor Marion Wilson.
Yes.
Right, thank you. We will now retire in private to consider the representations of all parties. You will be notified of the decision of the license by the licensing officer later today. Item 6, any other business. I have not had any other business, therefore that concludes the that concludes the meeting for today. Thank you.